afternoon from Addis Ababa. I salute all of you. I'm happy to join this program as a moderator. And I thank the APN and Youth Cafe also for organizing this informative event as we commemorate the Africa Day that we were celebrated on 25th May 2024. But also as Africans, African Day shouldn't be only a one day. There is a way of referring to the whole month as an African month. So happy African month to all of you as we commemorate and celebrate the African unity and liberation, not only from the yoke of colonialism, but also from poverty, insecurity, and low intra-Africa trade, education, and many more. And today I have very experienced panelists who have taken upon themselves to lead the way and create institutions, companies to champion continental agenda, even at the local level. So I will start by quick introduction to all the panelists. I'll be having 4 panelists. I will start with Tanaka Admire, who is a social innovator, is a development practitioner, regional trade expert, and Pan-Africanist. He champions the Agenda 23 and advocates for free market economies and the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Welcome, Tanaka. I also would like to introduce Matilda Mbaja. She is into mining, and her work cut across countries, starting from her own country, Tanzania, Mozambique, Kenya, Zambia, and many more across the Great Lakes region. She worked closely with women, miners, to transform their work, especially in the gemstone sector, into creation of state-of-art jewelries. And she founded a company, Wow Me Jewelry. And through that, they work in shaping the mineral value chain. And they have a very, are we together? I think you can mute it. Matilda also worked in fostering ethical practice, emphasizing local addition to minerals and promoting inclusivity. And that also helped in shaping the narrative of African mining sector. The third speaker, Mr. Robin Tamba, he is a seasonal Cameroonian entrepreneur with a diploma in petroleum engineering. He is also a chairman and CEO of UB Brima Investment and Logistics Limited, a subsidiary of the United Brothers Company, and a member of the Southern Nigerian Group of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The fourth speaker, Hama Ojera. He's a communication specialist and a digital outreach at the Youth Cafe organization. She also advocates for African youth development. He served as a communication and digital outreach officer at the Youth Cafe organization that advocates for building more relevant, sustainable, and efficient education and work system for young people, equipping them with knowledge so that they can be able to make proper decision for the society. These are my distinguished panelists who are going to unpack the discussion around not only theories, not only discussing theories, but from theory to practice, what is practical in regard to African philanthropy and also education. Education fit for purpose. Education fit not only for 21st century, but also for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The primary objective of this webinar is to discuss those elements, the nexus between education and the AFCFTA, and to discuss also the role of African philanthropy in playing the key role in advocating for better education system that support African development. So without a further ado, I would like to give the first opportunity to Mr. Tanaka. From the theme of our discussion on education and the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is a flagship project of Agenda 23, and also from your own experience, as we celebrate this special African Day and African months, what do you understand from unpacking this theme of educating an African fit for the 21st century? We want to get from your perspective, and I would like to give you 5 minutes to do that intervention. Tanaka, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well.
I hope you can see me because I've switched on my camera. Can you see me?
We can see you as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much to the organizers of this webinar, which comes at a very, very strategic timing. And if you remember very well, education is a key component because most of us here, since we were from kindergarten, we went to primary, I'm sure all of us here have acquired a simple and basic education. But over the years, the discussion has been around, where are we getting it wrong? Is the education which we are getting in our respective African countries the ideal education for a youth, for a young person, for an individual who should compete in the 21st century, in the global market, in the global scale? But nevertheless, from what you have posed in terms of we are given the theme by the African Union, which is around education, which is fit for an African in the 21st century. I feel that this theme itself, it's a clarion call to young people in particular, so that we speak with our voices, because now the 21st century is one which is very, very demanding. And if we are not careful enough, some of us and our other colleagues might be phased away by the 21st century skills and demands. And now, this theme by the AU was a clarion call to say, what do we need? When you're talking about the 21st century now, we are linking it with the fourth industrial revolution, where we are talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking of the Internet of Things. We're talking of robotics. We're talking of technology. And now, is our education able to meet this? So that's where we say we're at crossroads. And now, I feel now, from my own perspective, this is a clarion call for us, especially now we are talking of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which started in 2021 as a flagship program of the Agenda 2030, to say we need young people who raise the voices of what we want and where we want to go, number one. Number two, we have young people who are in these strategic positions. They should advocate and push for policies which are effective to say, let's mainstream these skills, because these are going to be the skills for the 21st century. So is our education meeting this? I'm glad that I come from Zimbabwe, where our Minister of Higher Tertiary Education, Professor Emon Murira, he realized where we're going and where we were. And especially now, most of our countries are pushing towards development to say we need to be an upper middle income economy. And now we had a model called Education 3.0. And this model of education was leaned on number one, which was teaching and learning. Number two was community service. Number three was research. But after realizing that time is moving and now we're in the 21st century, then they added other two components, which is innovation and industrialization, So now it's called Education 5.0, which is implemented by the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education in Zimbabwe. What is the goal of this? The goal of this is to open and establish incubation hubs and innovation centers in all state universities so that young people who have ideas, who have skills, who are going to solve the problems which we have been facing as a society, they can go into those innovation hubs and research centers in universities. Then they are assisted by the lecturers, by the personnel there to mold those ideas. And then afterwards, you can talk of intellectual property, you can talk of patenting your idea. Then you are able to be given a market so that you are funded, so that your idea becomes live. And at the end of the day, we see that that is an opportunity for young people to compete and to have the skills which are very important, because now you see that if your idea has gone through the incubation hub, the innovation hub, and now you have been mentored, you have been nurtured, it becomes easy because these are the ideas which we need to accelerate the implementation of the African continental free trade area. Because we are talking about all resources being in Africa, but yet we are seeking for a lot of resources outside the continent. So now you see that as young people, these are the discussions which we need to put across. And I'm glad that this is a very, very critical webinar which you're holding today, so that we exchange ideas and we come to a point where we say, where are we lacking? And I'm glad that in Zimbabwe, with our colleagues, we've also been pushing dialogues in universities and colleges in an effort to make sure that young people, they are aware about what is Africa Continental Free Trade Area, strides which have been done. Now we're talking about the Guided Trade Initiative, which was initiated with 8 countries piloting and South Africa being the latest. And now 35 other countries in Africa have sent their interest to say they also want to participate in the second phase. But the key issue is, if young people are aware about this, they have the knowledge, now facilitate and they can now push the narrative, because that is very, very important. So we are glad that other universities, they are willing to bring on board the FTA to be bridged within other modules, so that by the time a young person completes 4 years in university, he or she is aware about Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Not to say that you've been in university for 4 years, but now you are jumping into the market and then you are being told AFCFTA. Then you are wondering, what is it? The gap which you're trying to close. And young people with the voices, each and every one of us can play a part. And I'm glad that we are going to have a discussion. For now, I will leave it here for other panelists to share. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you very much, Tanaka, for the great intervention in the theme of our discussion, in also creating the nexus between the implementation of the AFCFTA with an education that is fit for the 21st century. And I like the fact that you alerted the young people that it is a call to action from the young people for their voice to be reflected in all those continental program like the African Continental Free Trade Area. So I will move to the next speaker, Matilda Imbajo. But before that, I would like to remind all the distinguished participants to introduce their names. Perhaps you can use the chat function to introduce your name, where you're from, and what do you do. That will also help us to have interaction while we are also hearing from our distinguished panelists to unpack the theme of our discussion. So I will pose the same question to Matilda from her perspective on how the theme of this year, education fit for 21st century, reflect the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, especially from your own perspective and experience of being very active in the mining sector. Over to you, Matilda.
Thank you so much, John. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I'm so happy and privileged to be here and sharing it. Can you hear me?
Yes, Matilda, you can continue.
Okay, I had a bit of interaction. So I'm so happy to be here with you and sharing a bit of what we have been doing and a bit of how education in the 21st century can really resonate with the times that we're in. But for the purpose of this, let me just say, professionally, I'm an accountant, but I've never worked as an accountant. I'm in mining sector. I've been in mining sector for more than a decade and a half, and all I know is in mining. So this topic is so dear to me because I've been in that journey where you're from the curriculum system, from the education system that you've been going through for your whole life, and then all of a sudden you haven't been using that henceforth. So the education and African fit for the 21st century resonates so deeply with me. And to me, it means empowering African youth with inclusive, quality, and relevant education. Because it's not enough to be inclusive, it's not enough to be of a good quality, it has to be relevant. It has to be relevant. And that prepares them to thrive in a rapid changing world. The world is kind of changing so much and so drastically currently compared to how it was in the 80s, in the 70s, and back then, well, when our parents were doing what they were doing. That's why you can hear when we were young, the parents could be, you need to go to school, you need to do this, so that worked for them. But now things are changing so much. Now our education system has to change to reflect that. Otherwise, we might be going on the opposite direction while the world is going on the other direction. Now, to me, it's about fostering critical thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers who can harness technology, creativity, and entrepreneurship to drive the African growth and global competitiveness. So it's one thing to be educated, it's one thing to go through that system, but if it's not creating or it's not encouraging critical thinkers, or it's not encouraging innovators, it's not encouraging problem solvers, then as Africa will be going backward and the world is going the other side. So everything then within the education system that has to be fit for 21st century has to encompass these things: critical thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers. And why is that so? Because at the end of the day, yes, we have African Free Continental Trade Area, but at the end of the day, if you don't have people who can harness technology, creativity, entrepreneurship, it will be just like any other initiative or any other mechanism that is in the continent. But and then to me, again, the education system fit for the 21st century, it means it's all about decolonizing the education system. Bear with me here. It's about now getting what fits Africa and what works for Africa, not just carrying something from somewhere and bring it home the way it is. Let's try to check, does this fit our locality? Does it fit where we are? Does it fit where we are heading? So it's all about decolonizing the education, embracing the African heritage, and promoting cultural competence. Because Africa is diverse. And in this diversity that we have can work so much in improving the education system that we currently have. And it's about creating resilience, adaptable, or responsible education system. Because as my fellow panelists has spoken, that the world is changing, things are shifting, we have all these initiatives and all that. But if we train people who can't adapt, and the education system is not responsive to these changes that are happening within the continent or within the globe, then I don't think that will be fit for the 21st century. And again, the system has to address the continental unique challenges and opportunities. For instance, in this panel, we have different people from different sectors. And this has to reflect even into African Free Continental Trade Area. Because again, the way it will work for someone in mining sector is a different way to work for someone in agriculture. It's a different way it works for someone in fashion. It's a different way it works for someone who is service provider, let's say in healthy and hospitality sector. So all these things needs to come together when we talk about education and AFCFTA and 21st century. So these are three components in one. To have these three components in one, we need to put in place our unique challenges and opportunities, both in regional economic zones, from the West, from the South, from the East, from the North, from the Central, and then come up with something that is so fit. Okay, ultimately, it's about unlocking the full potential of Africa human capital, ensuring that each individual can contribute and benefit. It's not enough to contribute, but it's you contribute and you benefit from the continental resources. We have a lot of a lot of resources within the continent. And maybe I'm talking about this from my perspective, from the sector that I'm in, mining sector. But I know the continent is blessed with vast resources. So when we talk about education, we talk about African Free Continental Trade Area, and we talk about 21st century. Whatever we do, it has to bring the human capital within the continent and ensure that individuals can contribute to it, but also can benefit from it, or can benefit from the resources that they're within. And by educating an Africa fit for the 21st century, I'm sure we can build a brighter future driven by African solutions for Africa first and for the world. So that's kind of the sphere that I'm in with the theme that we currently own. Because and actually it's because of maybe the sector I'm in and the things that I do within my sphere. But that's what I see when you bring the education system, when you bring the African Free Continental Trade Area, and when you bring the 21st century, it has to be that adaptable. It has to solve those challenges. We shouldn't live. It's not like you pick what works for you. I mean, you pick one and leave the rest. No, it has to go like that, like a package. Because at the end, you can have an adaptive, you can have a good structure, but when you haven't trained these people for this, it will not work. But for it to run smoothly as a well-oiled machine, it has to cater for all these areas that I've talked about. And let me just stop here for now. Thank you. Back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Matilda, for these great insights on an African solution for African first. I think it's something that is very relevant, especially when you talk about a relevant education for Africa. So it is something that we really want to advocate for, and thank you for the great insight. I will go to the third panelist, Mr. Ruben, to also give us his insight on how the theme and education is relevant to the African continental free trade area. And I understand you've been doing a lot of work in the private sector. We will be happy also to hear from your side and your perspective. Over to you, Mr. Ruben.
Thank you so very much, John. I don't know, am I audible enough?
You are audible.
Thank you. I want to give a very, very big shout out for my sister who just concluded her presentation. And let me a little bit redefine her idea of African solution for Africa first. To look this way, African solutions for African problems first. Yes, African solutions for African problems first. I want to extend my gratitude to the African Philanthropy Network for this very brilliant initiative, and let them know that all of us taking part in this webinar this afternoon, it's a great pleasure for us, and we have to keep on. Let us not just end at this, but we have to keep on so that we can continue educating our peers on recent happenings on the continent. Talking about education, in recent times, Africa has been operating on what I call dropouts from the West. we want to understand that the African syllabus or the African curriculum we have today, even that which we were opportune to go through, are all what was bubbled from the West and brought to us on this continent. So if we have to redefine Africa's education, we have to start from the curriculum. We have to start from the syllabuses that are being used to teach our young ones in either kindergartens, either in primary schools, either in secondary schools and universities. Because today we are at a crucial African continent where we as young Africans and those coming after us should know that we have to provide solutions for African problems first. If we should rapidly do a survey on this particular event now to find out how many of us are coming from East Africa, Southern Africa, Central Africa, and West Africa, and Northern Africa, we will notice to our greatest surprise that the majority will be from East Africa or maybe Southern Africa. Because in that particular part of Africa, the spirit of togetherness has been nurtured and grown through education, which is very, very much lacking in Central Africa and somehow West Africa and Northern Africa. We are still in that, how do I put it? We are still in that area where we tend to look at our brother as maybe somebody who is not straight, maybe somebody with whom we can't do something because his ideology or the way he thinks is maybe different from what obtains in our mind and all of that. All that boils down to the type of education we went through. So I think that the African Union and the AFCF Secretariat will have an assignment to do, which will be that of reviewing our syllabuses or curriculums in our schools. Because since the advent of the African Continental Free Trade, we are those who have been going to secondary schools, universities, struggling to engage students for them to be able to understand the importance of them joining efforts with us to preach the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade. But I won't tell you for a lie, the result has been so negative, has been so bad. Because you go to a particular business department in university, and by the time you start talking, you get one other young person who come to you and start asking you, so what do I gain in this? What is my benefit in this? So that's the mindset of young persons today. That's the mindset of our peers. So I think for us to be able to successfully get Africans doing things by themselves, we have to change the narrative from our syllabuses. If that is done, then certainly the statement of African solutions for African problems first will go a long way in getting Africans to know that it is time for us to put our energies together so that the rate of collaboration among us can increase rather than Africans increasing their rate of collaboration with the West. Thank you so very much, John. Thank you for giving me this first opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for giving us this insight, building on what Matilda also added in finding African solution for African problem or challenging first. I like the idea of first. So it is really important also to look at the reviewing and updating of the education curriculum. That is very key in championing the implementation of continental projects like the African Continental Free Trade Area, and also having education fit for purpose, fit for 21st century. I will go to the fourth panelist, Ms. Pamba Ojera, to also give us her insight following the same objective of getting the nexus between the theme of the year on education and the implementation of the AFCFTA. Before she comes and take the floor, I would like also to remind the participant to introduce their names. Also, the APN Twitter account is active. Please go there, reshare the event, retweet it, and I believe Kelvin also will help us on the link we can follow on the chat. So I give the opportunity to Ms. Kamba Ojera to also give us her insight and perspective. Over to you, Pemba.
Hello, John. Thank you so much for giving me this platform. It's absolutely fantastic to be able to be a part of this conversation and drive educational initiatives forward. I do think that this theme was absolutely relevant for the African Day because, yes, we are celebrating sort of like our independence from the
Pemba, sorry for cutting
yes.
your intervention, but we will be happy to see you. If you can open your camera, we'll appreciate that. If you are able to open your camera. Is it possible from your end? Yes, now I can see you. Hello, Pamba. I think you are muted.
I think that everything is very, very visible. Yes, as I was saying, yes, we're looking back. No, I'm not.
Yes,
Can
you are
you hear?
audible. You can proceed. Yes, and then along the way,
Can you
if you
hear me
face
properly?
challenges on your internet, you can also switch on camera. Yeah, I mean, I understand the network is not that is strong. You can proceed. You can proceed. We can hear you very well.
Okay, fine. Let me switch it off so that this is okay. Good, good, good. Um, okay. I do think that this is the time to now reflect back on how far we've come. And this is absolutely fantastic because we have to think about our independence and progress. I'll sort of like piggyback on what the previous speaker did say. We kind of have to think about solutions which are relevant to Africa. And that's what I mean by saying that we can have to think about being independent. We can look at China. China is a very good example of how they have used education to speed up their modernization process. Yes, they focused, they knew what needed to be done. They focused their initiatives on what their education system is lacking and when and look at where they are now. They are speeding up to be among the most superpower economies in the country, in the globe right now. And just to say that we have been working on a report on the state of African youth, and this report it's launching on the 3rd or the 4th of June this year. So if you would be welcome you're all welcome to join our workshop as we're going to be launching this report together with an advocacy in governance spaces. Yeah. So in this report, we found that many that even though school completion rates have increased since 2000, many are still struggling to access quality education beyond primary level. A significant number of youth, especially young women, cannot afford education. And then we also found that, yes, which is no news to anyone, the rate of unemployment is very, very high, creating a gap between graduates and available job opportunities. And even though, yes, we have high education people, we have people who have graduated with high education. Most of them find that their skills are not needed in the workplace, so they can't particularly contribute, which of course still which fuels underemployment, hindering economic growth. So by 2030, we're going to find that 230 million jobs in Africa will demand digital skills. So this is most definitely a fantastic platform to turn this narrative around. We have to figure out particular areas in our education system that need to shift to accommodate the 21st century. I am a product of the AL, ALN or ALX. I think they are a perfect example of they're a perfect initiative in the continent, but they're not only in Kenya, they're pretty much everywhere else. They're in Ghana, they're in South Africa, and they are choosing to, because their main objective is to they think they want by 2030 to have upskilled 3 million African youth and given them a job, even if it's abroad or just even in the organization. And they're doing this by providing AI skills or business development skills or mostly technology related skills. So they are literally giving young Africans the platform or the education that they need to work in the 21st century. So I feel like this is the fantastic platform, yes, to do this, but we really need to identify the part education system that needs to be changed and really just run with that. Yeah, and actually, with that organization, it's fantastic. It's also a very good example that shows how philanthropy, because they are funded by Mastercard, so they're able to that, and all these lessons are actually very free. I have taken the financial the FI course. I took that course. All of them are very, very free. So if you are an African and you are looking to also upskill, you can literally just run there. But that's to show that there are organizations that are working on towards that, so we can all just, not particularly piggy bank, but we have a leeway that can work. Yeah, so I think I'll stop here and turn it back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Pamba, for giving us that perspective on quality education and also the challenges for a skill mismatch, where you find in some instances a well-educated citizen and they are also struggling with education. And that's give us a very good transition on what we want to improve on in digital education, looking at the artificial intelligence and the fourth industrial revolution. Those are the things that comes with the advancement of technology and industrialization into the 21st century. And that gives me a good transition to the second question that I would like you to discuss about, that looking at, you talk about quality education, you talk about skill mismatch in some instances that create unemployment. You talk about relevant education, and all these need a lifelong learning. It needs skills enhancement. If we try to create the nexus with the African continental free trade area and the education system we have, from your own opinion and from your perspective, and in supporting this initiative of education and how best we can link it with the African continental free trade area, is our education outdated? So I will come back to you, Pamba. I will start with you this time around, and I get back to the first panelist. I want you to give us a concrete example of what is really working. I like the fact that you are also doing research in understanding what is working, what is not working in the continent. If you look at education, if you look at unemployment level. So if you could give us an example of what is working and what is not working, and understanding also the challenges and the gap in this skill enhancement and lifelong education. We need to be agile in learning. I don't know if I can call it catch up, but we really need to advance and be competitive in the world. So we want to hear your perspective on enhancing lifelong learning through education and skill development. Over to you, Pamba. Hello, Pamba. If you are speaking, maybe you are muted.
Yeah.
Hello, Pamba. Can you hear me? You can unmute yourself. Pamba, we are not hearing you from this side. I'm not sure if the other participant in the call can hear her. If not, I
Hello,
can
can you hear
go.
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hear me?
Yes, you're audible. Yes, Pamba, you are audible. You can go ahead. All right. Maybe Pamba has a bit of a challenge in the network. Let me go to Ruben and pose to you the same question on the lifelong learning and education, and tell us what is working from your own experience. I know you are in the field right now as we talk. So, what is not working? What is working? What are the perspectives that we can consider as Africans to develop the
Well, here at
education system
the
we want?
UI,
And
high quality
uh, Pa- Pam, Pamba, perhaps you can follow Ruben after his intervention. Yes, Mr. Ruben, you can go ahead, and Pamba will follow your intervention. Thank you. Ruben, you are muted.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. Thank you. I think I'm audible now.
Yes.
You see, John, in 2020, when the African Continental Free Trade was launched, we were very, very skeptical. We were skeptical to the point that so many questions were running across our minds as to the fact that is the project going to be embraced by Africans? Would the African private sector, who happens to be uh, who happens to be that sector which will benefit and make a lot of profits if that particular project was implemented, would there be that understanding from them for them to be able to accept the project, queue in, and educate their peers or share information as to the well-being of carrying the project along to its success? But as our continent will want it, we still have some persons who think that Africa is not good enough to trade within themselves. They have to still maybe continue trading with the West and carrying all our monies and maybe changing it to their currencies to go and trade over there and all of that. Not knowing that that will kill first their local economies, various economies, and that would somehow delay their own children from employment. Because you want to know that if we have to put a barrier, or not even putting a barrier as per se, but reduce our level of trade commitment with the West, that will go a long way in encouraging the private sector locally on the continent, and we'll have a lot of capital that can help the private sector to increase its operation, and thereabout creating employment for those young persons out there who daily needs to be employed. So I think, as I just mentioned in my previous presentation, we have to call on our elites When I talk of elites, I mean those who are actually at the helm of power, to understand that time has come for our syllabuses to reflect what happens on the African continent. That time has come for us to preach the gospel, if I can put it that way, or the message that it is our time for us to use our African solutions to face our African problems. Because without that, sincerely, we will still be on that point of always facing the West with what we have as challenges and looking up to them for solutions. Meanwhile, we have solutions on the African continent. We have solutions on the African continent. The African Development Bank annual meeting is taking place in Kenya. I don't know if the private sector in Kenya and those around East Africa have been able to appropriate that event and ask questions as to fundings to their various industries. Because that is an event where the private sector was supposed to march into and question various ministers of finance and other stakeholders to find out what is happening to financial support to the private sector. Because if we have the private sector functioning perfectly, we are going to address a lot of issues as to trade within the African continent, as to unemployment, and so many other problems that we are facing on the African continent. So our take-home message should be solutions for African problems first. That is where we stand. And we as young persons on the continent today, we have to put aside the issue of my brother who is maybe in Nigeria, doing a business transaction with him. Should I not be afraid of or whatsoever? We have to put that mindset away, because if we keep on with that mindset, certainly we are going nowhere. We are going nowhere. Those persons who usually think as such, I will ask them, the person you are trading with in China, have you thought for 1 second that that person also can abuse you? If you are thinking of being abused by a brother in Ghana, or by a brother in Cameroon, or by a brother in Nigeria, what of the person in China? The person in China, is he also that mysterious that he can also be put in that category of bad faith or whatever? So please, I think it is time for us to look for our African solutions for our African problems first. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for re-emphasizing on African solution for African problem first. And that make a lot of logic. And I thank you for re-emphasizing that. I'll go back to Pamba if your network improve, to give us also your insight of what is working and what is not working when it comes to youth participation in supporting long life education system and skills enhancement. Pamba, is your network helping?
I would like to think that it is right now.
Yes,
Hopefully
we can hear you.
now breathing is smooth. Awesome, awesome. So, like I was saying, at the Youth Cafe, we aspire to provide like high quality education and training programs for young people so that they're able to access, or at least to be easily integrated into the economic into the job market per se, because we like to see ourselves as we call ourselves the light bulb for African youth. So we'd like to see ourselves as people who particularly hold the youth's hand and like push them towards their aspirations. We have been able to reach out to, I think, 1.6 million young Africans yeah, that is men and women, that is of course in the continent. And we've been able to do this because through partnerships. Partnerships is our main pillar in terms of like, because we partner with educational institutions. We have to provide to facilitate this sort of programs. They have the funds, or they're able to at least pour in money, and we're able to put up structures and facilitate this kind of program so that the students are able to they can go through the learning process as late as possible. And most of our programs are usually, yes, we focus on the 21st century skills, but we try to ensure that it's student centered. And by that I mean that we're breaking the program down to the student level, their level of understanding, or their level of actually understanding. Um, this may be a random example, but I feel like it's the most relevant one. We were hosting, we try to use art to turn something that would have been something that would have been a larger, huge document, and turn that into an artistic piece so that a young person can be able to engage with it. You know, yes, for you to facilitate like lifelong learning, it's through having like a growth mindset, just trying to ensure that yes, what I'm doing, as long as I keep working on it, I will be able to achieve my goal. But it has to start somewhere. The youth nowadays, I don't want to say that the attention is very small, but you have to capture the attention first before they're able to you're able to actually take them through that road, right? So yeah, to just ensure that the lessons are very student centered. Yeah, so number one is to partnership with other organizations to bring together this infrastructure or create a system that works. And number two, we facilitate physical exchanges between teachers to share, best practices to help them learn from each other, and then, help them thrive in their program. I might reference uh, China a bit because I have learned a lot of their educational process. And one of their most respected profession is being a teacher, because yeah, education is very important to them on that end of the world. And so that being a teacher means that you are very, very respected in the society. And one of the things that they also implement is teacher training program. When your teacher is good, they're able to what's the word, pass on knowledge properly, or at least if the teacher is good, the students will learn properly. So we also tend to facilitate physical exercise between teachers so they learn from each other and they're able to thrive. We also have like a knowledge hub, or an information portal. We do have a huge number of communities, or like the youth sector communities, per se, and to keep them engaged and to keep them I want to say like their information business keeping running. We we host a knowledge hub. In this, we put in research papers or anything that we find that is relevant for them to learn. They will be interested to know. We have various pillars, not just education, but health as well, economic growth, and so every community member has their interest. So just to ensure that they keep on learning, we have to continue giving them more information that's why we do all this research. That's why the workshop is coming up. You understand? I like to think that's how we try to ensure that we
Thank,
long
thank you.
learning.
Thank you very much, Pamba, for your insightful intervention. I will go straight to Matilda to give us her insight in regard to supporting long life education system and skill enhancement. And also, I really want to link this with the trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area regime, where are we able to move goods from country A to B? Driving that from your experience in working on in Jamestown on that transform to jewelries. What is your insight with the AFCFTA agreement? What are the things that we want to learn? What are the things that we want to unlearn, right? What are the skills that we need to develop for us to engage in this trading regime? I give you the floor.
John, all of that. They speak. So, okay. The mere fact that you wanted me to relate that to what I do, I think I'll start from there before going to what works, what's not working. A couple of years ago, when we just got in and we were supposed to bring in some machines, and when we sent for those machines from the US here, we noticed that there was an issue with them coming directly here. So we had to take them to Europe, Europe to Asia, to UAE, UAE here. And then the following time, after learning that, the following time what we did, we took the machines from the US to UAE directly and then here. It used a very short period of time. And then, using the same example, there was a day we had an order from a client in Nigeria. We got our pieces, we got Jameson from Zambia. It was easy because I was there in person, so it was easy to get that from there. So we came to there, we made the jewelry. To send it from here to Nigeria, it took 4 weeks. Just direct from Tanzania to Nigeria took 4 weeks. And then the following time I was like, okay, let me see how this movement within the continent works. I got some very beautiful tourmalines from Nigeria, from women miners in Nigeria to come to TZ. It took 4 weeks from Nigeria here. And I was using Express, DHL. It took 4 freaking weeks. And then trying to learn what work was not working, not working. We did the same thing with Jaipur, India. So we ordered a different thing, but the same magnitude in terms of price, in terms of quantity and all that. It took 7 days from Jaipur to there. So when you talk about the experience between the movement within the continent, let me talk about my sector, the one that I'm in, the one I've been working with. It's still a bit of a challenge. It's still a bit of a hassle here and there. That could be because of logistic issues. It might not be necessarily because of the education part of it, but with good emphasis from the education part of it, maybe things will be different. But on the ground, that's the reality on the ground when it comes to moving of items, product, whether value added or not value added, whether it's value added or raw from, within the continent. But let me just jump to what's working. Increased awareness. That's what I can say. One thing that is working. So youth currently are becoming more aware of the importance of lifelong skills and enhancement, which drives demand for relevant programs and initiatives. I'll give you an example still with what we do. 8 years ago, when we first learned via YouTube how to do jewelry the way people in the West are doing, people in the East are doing, we used YouTube to learn all these things. But after learning that, you get your machines. On the ground, you don't have anyone who has that knowledge. Because of lack of technical skills, there's no curriculum that works for them or curriculum that trains them for that. But what we did, we went to get people from Armenia. So we worked with some guys from Armenia and Russia and Ukraine for 5 years before when like, no, enough is enough. We need to train people on ground to do these things. And how did we train them? It was very simple. It was using the available technology, using the available ways on the ground, through digital, through online programs, through peer-to-peer exchange programs. Someone in Kenya knows this thing, you take your guy from here to go and learn in Kenya. So it was very easy. So increased awareness of what's really happening out there is what's working. We can carry it as what's working. And we can use that when we're talking about when we want to really change or we want to really work on the education system within the continent and when it comes to lifelong learning and all that. But another thing, I'll give you an example. I work with Tanzania Women in Mining and Mineral Industry. It's a platform for women in mining and youth, but we have an arm for mentorship. We have a couple of university students who are doing engineering and mineral processing. At some point, we asked them, so how many are you in your class? They gave us a number. And I was like, how many girls are there in your class? She went like 3. So in your whole class for this year, you're just 3 girls. And then I went to another friend of mine who graduated in the same university 15 years ago. I asked her, so how many girls were you in your class? Unfortunately, she said 3. There were still 3 girls within the same class, within the same course. So that brings me to, yes, maybe things have been shifting, things have been changing, things have been different. But the same education that this friend of mine 15 years ago went on in terms of the mining sector is the same this other lady who is in her second year is going through, right? But again, the change or the shift that is happening within the mining sector globally is vast, to the point by the time this student that we're doing mentorship on gets out of the university, comes on the job market, a couple of years down the road or months down the road, those skills are obsolete. But do we have something, do we have structure for microlearning? Other people are doing that. It's working for them. I think it's one of the things that we can pull on our end and make it work for us. So it's working. It's not necessarily working here in Tanzania, but it's something that is working out there. We can bring it in and do a bit of short training, whether it's in African Continental Free Trade Area, whether on anything. Those short-term qualifications keep people updated with what is going around. But the final thing, I would say, entrepreneurial spirit. Whatever we do in terms of education, in terms of African Free Continental Trade Area, without, yes, we have the initiative. It's a good initiative for Africans. Yes, it has glitches currently, but the more people utilize that initiative that way, the more we'll notice what works, what's not working. And for us to get a number of people going through that direction, for us to know what really working and what not really working, we need to increase our push on entrepreneurial spirit within the continent. Young Africans to embrace entrepreneurship and innovation, creativity, and to foster just the culture of self-directed learning and skill development when it comes to entrepreneurship. Because some of these things are not necessarily to be learned in class. It's just to be planted in someone's mind, to be planted in someone's, I don't know, in someone's ways of life, for them to know, okay, it's not necessary to go through this road, but entrepreneurship can be a way for me to go through. And then from there, you have more people going through that road, and then we'll know more of what's really working within the movement of goods and services within the continent and what's really not working. So that's on the part of what's working. What's not working can be a bit of limited access. So many people, especially, okay, we have this technology, we are sharing these things, but how much of our population can access what we're accessing here? For instance, in Tanzania, what's the number of the population that can access this? And does that mean that population is not within the trade route, within the trading patterns, or within the trading environment, within the entrepreneurship environment? That might not be true. So I think limited access to what we are having here to the larger population. Meaning, next time we're having something like this, event like this, let's see a way of including the people who are marginalized in different areas, in areas that they don't know if this is a thing. If you go down there to a miner in Tanga, they might not know if I can sell my gemstone to someone in Nigeria. So that's a bit of thing that is not working currently, but we can make it work. There's always a way. But another thing is irrelevant curriculum. Yes, I go with the traditional education system. I go with that. It has its importance, but often it fails to equip youth with the skills and knowledge required for the modern workforce or entrepreneurship. So if, yes, we have initiative like African Continental Free Trade Area running right now, it's so helpful for Africa. It could be it could be a very game changer that we are looking forward to. But if we have an irrelevant curriculum on the ground, it might not work the way we want it to work. But the last one is funding and support. I love how Ruben pointed that out, but still there's a huge gap when it comes to funding, when it comes to there's insufficient funding and resources to support both from governments, institutions, organizations, and then that hinders scalability and sustainability of youth-led initiative. Because if I need to cross border to Kenya to sell my thing in Kenya, it means first I've supplied a bit of that in my territory within Tanzania. Now I have surplus to take to Kenya. So many initiatives can do the cross-border trades, but insufficient funding can really hinder that. And you might be there thinking like, no, we don't have cross-border trades and all that, but it's just a bit of insufficient fund. For me to be able to take my goods to Nigeria, it means I've catered for the market that is already here. Now I have surplus to take to Nigeria. So when it comes to that point of funding, I think we might need to get what works there. What can work for us in terms of funding for scalability? Because without scalability, we'll have the African Free Continental Trade Area from north to south, but it will not function because there are no goods to be moved around, or there are no services to be moved around. And I think for now, I can just stop.
Thank you, Matilda, for this insight. I know you are passionate about the inter-Africa trade and education. And yes, we also want to hear from our distinguished participants so that it would not be a one-way traffic. We also want to hear from participants. I want to hear their questions that they can ask the panelists. But before that, I would like to give each panelist 1 minute or less to answer one of my final questions, and I promise the participant to also, have the question. You can post a question, you can put it on the chat, you can raise your hand. And I saw, Ruben, you raise your hand. I will give you an opportunity, and then I'm sure there's something burning you want to also share with us. But if I can go to Naka and also ask you to give us, like, for example, what should be in place for the youth to effectively participate and contribute in reshaping the education system to be fit for the 21st century, and also having the bigger picture of trading our amongst us. Tanaka, you have 1 minute for that.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
I think I would say let's come together and do exchange of knowledge. Secondly, let's maximize on what we have, because, for example, in my country, there was an amendment of the constitution to allow 10 youth members of parliament. And now we are now pushing them to expedite what young people want to see. So those are some of the avenues which you can use. So slowly but sure. So each and every opportunity must not be missed, must be taken advantage of, and must be maximized so that we see what we want to achieve in the coming future and within the development of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanaka. Ruben, if you can give us one example on what should be in place for the youth to effectively participate and contribute toward reshaping the education system in Africa, and education that is fit for purpose And I understand you have also burning inputs that you want to add. If you can put them together in 1 minute, I would appreciate. Ruben, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, John. Today, we are among those persons that are letting our peers know that there shouldn't be a barrier to trade. I'm so sorry, my sister had logistic challenges from Nigeria to Tanzania. And she also mentioned funding issues. Let her not worry. UB Bremer is gradually coming to East Africa. Is gradually getting hold in East Africa so that we can be able to change the narrative in that part of Africa as we have successfully done in Central Africa and West Africa. In 2021, I personally traveled on land from Lagos right up to Uganda. That was an initiative that we were struggling to see how we could link Lagos to Uganda on land within a space of 1 week. We were out to make sure that, or out to be able to see if we could link Lagos from Lagos to Uganda within 1 week. So it is actually ongoing. We are working on that day in, day out. So that in the nearest future to come, maybe before the end of this year, we will not have her complaining of the fact that it took her 4 weeks for her to be able to move whatsoever she's moving from Tanzania to Nigeria. We are going to sort that out. And we young persons should also understand that the activities of the AFCFTA will take some time for some to actually materialize. Gradually, it is taking place. We just need to keep on our advocacy and keep on letting our peers know and believe in the process of the implementation of the AFCFTA. Because if we collectively do that, we'll get to notice at a point in time that everything is working for our good. I want to extend my greetings to my brother Tenaka. We have been doing a lot on WhatsApp, on LinkedIn. He is one of those persons that together we have been clamoring for collaboration. Because if we have to successfully get the AFCFTA on roll or unfold as we want it, it is through collaboration. You see, my sister just mentioned an issue of logistics, and I'm telling her on real time that we are working to solution that. And even the issue she mentioned on funding, there are certain informations I would want to disclose here, but let her know that that as well is being taken care of. All of us, we are informed and we know that the protocol on women and youth has been ratified, has been actually accepted by the Council of Ministers. So there is actually provisions on that particular protocol for women and young persons to be able to get finances at a reasonable interest rate to go about cross-border trade. So please, let us not carry the information of the fact that, please, this is difficult with AFCFTA, this is it. No, please, we don't want that. If you are struggling to go about cross-border trade and you encounter 1 or 2 challenges, get in touch with us, because people like us, we are on ground real time. Get in touch with us and we'll provide solutions to that within 48 hours. Within 48 hours. Because we want that Africans should be able to trade among themselves and do meaningful transactions among themselves. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for that proposal, and also offering a solution for the challenges that we confronted in terms of logistics. And dear participant, and I'm sure Matilda also, you need to connect with Ruben in terms of solving this issue of logistics and how we can ponder together to find a solution for that. I'll go straight to Pamba. If you can use 1 minute or less to also give us your perspective on what need to be in place for effective participation of youth in reshaping the education system. Pamba, are you there?
Yes, yes, I am. I do hope that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, good, good, good. I do think this question kind of just sort of like wraps up everything that we have been talking about, because with the youth to effectively participate and contribute in reshaping education system, it kind of still factors in everything that most of the panelists have talked about. For example, yes, for example, the lifelong learning. You know, to promote a culture where youth um prioritize choosing to continue to upskill. It means that they will to upskill or reskill. It means that they will forever be prepared for the evolving demands, of the 21st century workforce. Yeah. If we're also focusing on partnerships, if you are choosing to partner with either educational institutions or government agencies or community organization to ensure that there's a holistic support system for youth development. This such collaborations help to design a more relevant and a responsive education programs, that meets the needs of the learner and the labor market. Also, just to ensure that young people are actively involved in the decision making process that are related to education. Their perspectives, their ideas, their feedback should be valued and integrated into policy development and its implementation. Uh, uh, Also, to just say, access to quality education, which is sort of like it's the reason why we're here. Obviously providing access to it either through, because I feel like we've talked about how education works, but we haven't really touched on how philanthropy can factor in beautifully with education. Yeah. So just to say that um the ripples of the ripple effect of philanthropy can be felt, yes, through education. And just like I said in the beginning of this webinar, if we are to just target areas where our education system needs to change, then we'll just provide either mentorship programs or cross-border business collaboration or research grants. Then I think providing such platforms and such, should I say, muscle help would help the youth um, uh, easily integrate or
Thank
or
you.
reshape education.
Thank you, Pamba, for the intervention. And before I open it up for question and answer, I would like to give 1 minute or less to Matilda to also share an insight or one example on what need to be in place for effective participation of youth, for them to be able to contribute in reshaping the education in Africa. Matilda, in less than a minute, if you can do that. Matilda, are you in call? Also, for the participant who are in the call, please get ready for your question directed to panelists. You can use the chat function. You can also use, the function that you can raise your hand so that you can be able to speak and then direct your question to specific panelists or for all of them. So, Matilda, you are back. I'm asking you if you could provide example or what need to be in place to encourage youth participation in reshaping education fit for the 21st century. You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. So as I was saying, I know one of the most important party, Pamba has already pointed it out. I would just put it as intergenerational collaboration. It's not just a collaboration, but intergenerational. And then that can be partnership between youth, educators, policymakers, community leaders, and just to foster knowledge sharing and co-creation. Because it might not be necessarily on the classroom setting, but just to be open to intergenerational collaboration. That I know Pamba have talked about a bit of that collaboration part of it. But another thing is celebrating youth success, recognizing and showcasing youth achievement and innovation and contribution to the education reforms. Because it's one thing to want to have more youth participating in this. But for those who have participated, if there is no celebration, recognition, and showcasing of their achievement, no one will want to get in. It's the same of that in that agriculture forum when a ladies one participant suggested agriculture has always been perceived this way. How would I want to go into agriculture where always I see dirty things, all the things, and things that are not appealing. So for her, that was the reason as to why most youth didn't participate in agriculture. But I think it's the same notion, it's the same thing. If we don't celebrate those who have put themselves out there to bring about the reforms, current reforms within the continent, within our spheres, then more people will be closed in and just refuse to just get in. I have a friend, it's called, her institution is called Teddy. Teddy has been running entrepreneurship training for young kids and having people like us. So in whatever challenge she has, she takes people like us. So tell these kids, standard 2, standard up to standard 7. Tell this kid this and this. What do you do? How can they start? So if someone like that you don't celebrate, we don't know what they're doing, it's hard to encourage others to go into. But another thing is encouraging flexibility in learning pathways, different ways of learning. People learn differently. I don't want us to stick to this way. And for us to go to that way, flexible way of flexible learning pathways, we need to invite youth. Because current youth have different ways of doing things. I call them life hacks. They have the best way you can do things in a simple, fastest manner. So encouraging them to get in, valuing their ideas and all that, it will bring personalized, competence-based progression and recognition of non-formal and informal learning. So I think those 3 things would really foster the 21st century education that we want to
Thank you.
see in the
Thank you very much, Matilda. Now we want to open it up to distinguished participants also to ask their own question. We don't want it to be a one-way traffic. So we also need to hear your experience or something that you may need more elaboration from the panelists. So I'm giving you opportunity to also pose a question. You can use either, posting your question on the chat where there is a chat function, or you can just raise your hand. You use the raise hand function, and I will give you the chance to ask your question directly. Anyone? I'm seeing appreciation to the panelists. Thank you very much for that. Let me go through if there is any question. Also, Kelvin, help me if there's any question in the chat to the panelists or any in the social medias if there will be any question that require the panelists to elaborate on. All right, I'm seeing more of a suggestion to the discussion. Of course, yes, indeed, it is very important for young people to be part of the decision making. Thank you for that, Victoria. And if not, I feel it is very clear. The distinguished panelists, they made it very clear that education matters, education that is relevant to the 21st century, not only relevant to 21st century, but relevant to relevant to African integration. That is, under the African continental free trade area, we want to be able to move, we want to be able to trade, we want to be able to catch up with artificial intelligence, we want to know, digital education, and all those contributed toward advancing the agenda for the Africa we want, and the African continental free trade area is a key in that. And education cut across different fields, not only necessarily in the trade, but in all these fields in this life, all the sectors. We need a meaningful education, an education that solves African challenges. And I appreciate the panelists for that. I'm reading if there is any question posted. Emphasis on advocacy and policy. Thank you for that. And of course, engagement and funding, as the panelists mentioned. So, in regard to funding and transportation, I believe Ruben also talked about that. Matilda talked about it as well. And youth initiative. Yes, thank you very much for all your comments. I see you are adding into the discussion through the comments that are coming on the chat. So let me go back to my panelists to give their final thought in this discussion. And I need you to open your camera, look to us, and if you could leave us with one message to reflect on these special months in celebration African unity and African liberation. Given the discussion that we had under the African philanthropy and education for the African continental free trade area. Of course, we want to move from theory to practice. We want to do things practically. What could be that one message that you want us to take as a takeaway from this session? So let me start with Tanaki, followed by Matilda, followed by Ruben and Pamba. And please, 1 minute or less. Tanaka, we want to hear your message to the Africans out there.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. We can hear you well.
Okay, so for me, I would say the only way forward is going forward, and let us always remember that we are masters of our own destiny. The time has come for African youth to take the mandate, to take charge, to chart their own future, where they want to go. And once young people realize this, to push us towards driving Agenda 2063. Thank you so much. Asante sana, nimeita basi tatenda. Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Tanaki, for this great message. I will give the opportunity to Matilda. Give us a message in 1 minute. Matilda, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Super.
So what I could say in 1 minute, actually, no 1 minute. So let's embrace our rich culture, heritage, and harness our innovative spirit to shape the brighter future that for ourselves and for the generations to come. And let's celebrate the triumph, the winnings that we have, and learn from our setbacks, and continue to rise above the challenges and have held us back for too long. So we celebrate our triumphs, we learn from our setbacks, and we rise above the challenges. That's all.
Rising above the challenges. Thank you very much for that. Ruben?
Thank you very much, John. My take-home message to us will be that let African Philanthropy Network put all what has been discussed here in practice, because we are fond of organizing such, and after that, nothing to show off, nothing to write home about, and next year we keep on repeating the same initiative. So please, I personally, I will be on Kevin's head for us to get what has been discussed here implemented, so that we can use this initiative as a springboard to showcase successes of young persons and recognize those young persons that have been outstanding in encouraging others to follow suit in the implementation of the AFCFTA. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Amba?
Okay, I'm just trying to figure it out if I should turn my camera on or the Wi-Fi would start dancing. Okay, my takeaway. All right, is the current Africa what you'd like to see? If it isn't, we know where to begin. We have to invest in our youth. Just as Matilda had said, Africa is rich with resources and our youth are not a step behind. We have an aging world and Africa is brimming with youthfulness. That is literally the advantage we've got here. By 2030, we're going to account for 42% of the global working age population, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think the other countries are also realizing that they're aging, and Africa has this young energy buzzing around the continent, and they're coming here. They're trying to figure out how they're migrating, some of us, to go to their countries and work. So we understand that we have an advantage. We have, as long as we invest in our youth, we celebrate their potential, just as Matilda has said, this African Day, and then we commit to building a future where young people can thrive, then Africa will stand independently in its own prowess. I think that's my last thing.
Thank you very much, Amber, and this will also bring us to the conclusion of this session. And thank you to all distinguished panelists for giving us these great insights for African unity, diversity, leading our own development path, and also focusing on youth and promoting culture and heritage, and also looking at practical things. So APN and Youth Cafe, they said, let's make this work. Let's make this make sense to us. Let's work the talk. So thank you very much. And I appreciate all the distinguished panelists for their contribution. And thank you very much. Asante Sana. I'm John Johannes, and I will end my session here. I'll give it back to Kelvin to lead us through the next session. Thank you very much. Ciao. Kelvin, you have the floor.
At this moment, I will just act as Kelvin. Thank you so much, Johannes, for this great discussion, our speakers for all the contributions. And I think for us at APN, it's just to note some of the key highlights that have really come through this discussion. We are talking about educate an African fit for the 21st century. And I can safely say that for the past 2 hours or so, that's exactly what we have been doing. And what I really appreciated about this webinar is the emphasis on African solutions for African problems first, because the African Philanthropy Network is something that we really emphasize. Our work is grounded in local communities, in ensuring that we are responding to our own challenges as Africans, utilizing the relevant and what you might think of as traditional solutions that we have always used to respond to any other challenges in the past. And also importantly, the aspect around decolonizing the education systems so that whatever we are getting is fit to our different contexts, right? What we appreciate, the education systems that we appreciate in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, or other countries, they might be different, and it's something that we should take into cognizance. And also, it's really crucial for our systems to encourage innovation, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. It's something that I also really appreciated from the one of the speakers. And most importantly, I think I appreciated the point around the need for young people to raise their voices on what they want. The solution lies in you. I know that Ruben was saying, APN, we are coming for your head, but we can turn that around, Ruben, and say, we are coming for your head, because what we are expecting young people to be doing is to ensure that they're raising their voices, and they're also advocating for the effective policies that can really mainstream and support skills that are fit for education of the 21st century. But without wasting much time, I think the issue of collaboration and partnerships cannot be overemphasized. It was really mentioned through and through. And I really appreciate the issue around funding and resources. I think if we are going to walk the talk, it's also important to have the resources and funding that can aid the nature provide capacity building support for the youth, but also to just enable them to implement the various initiatives that they have. I'll now call up Dr. Tenga. Kelvin, are you able to assist with bringing Dr. Tenga to help us with the conclusion and way forward? Thank you.
I'm right here, and I've been listening so attentively. I've been energized, I've been well informed, I've been learned within this time of the conversation. I want to start, Tarisai and everyone else, by thanking you guys. Thank you for partnership. Thank you, the speakers. Thank you, the people who have attended this. We recognize your leadership. You are the leaders of today, and we are not even waiting for any other conversation to come. What you have said today, it's so critical and very important. It brings and generates strong perspective into the narrative of ensuring that there are strong voices and true voices and safe spaces for young people to participate in the implementation of AFTA. At the Africa Philanthropy Network, we believe that there is a lot of power in philanthropic practices. And the power there is the voice, is the action, is the natural resources we have around us, is the skills, is the social capital and network we have. And the African philanthropy for us means everything that we can grab and make it useful to respond to our urgency and respond to our challenges. And we have been speaking about using Africa Free Trade Area as a framework for young people to be able to play their role, rightful role, in the development of this continent. We have started this conversation and we'll continue with this conversation. Today, we have been focusing on education systems. We think that is key, and we think there is nothing that we would do without emphasizing on education systems in the broader perspective. The systems that would liberate young people, the system that will make us independent, the system that will provide opportunity for us to engage in bringing about our own development, and also create opportunities for us to own our own destiny and build the Africa we want. This is the practice that is happening at the Africa Philanthropy Network. And one thing which I wanted to assure us with is that at APN, this is not an end. We believe in starting by ensuring that the action and voices of young people are included in development frameworks. So we'll continue to create spaces, and we are looking forward to have all of you walk along with us in collaboration to ensure that there is very active voice and participation and also engagement in the community of practice around youth in philanthropy in Africa, which we are inaugurating after this conversation. The framework is after, because that gives us long-term and that brings us very close to the African Union and the African Union after Secretariat. The framework is the protocol that has recently been launched. We really need to abide to those policy frameworks. But the framework is also linking the voices from the grassroots through our nations to the regions and the continent and global. So those linkages cannot happen without you. In most parts of Africa, we have almost 65% plus young people. So some of us have no space than providing space like this one. But this space should be for you to be able to come with ideas which are going to shape the policies and shape the system that we want. But also coming up with the practices that work and emerging practices to help us become active participant in the implementation, because it is our task. We don't have energy any longer at this age, but you are. So we'll continue to provide leadership, holistic leadership in collaboration with other Pan-African institutes like Pan-African Leadership Institute, to make sure that most of the young people have the leadership skills they deserve to have for them to unlock the potential, to be true contributors in not only the policy making, but also in the implementation processes, in the measurement of the success that we want to have as Africans, but also in, again, supporting the long-term programming. So that is one area which we are promising to do. The second one, we'll continue to liaise with you and collaborate with you to document all the practices in the field, practices that work and practices that does not work. Because by documenting the practices, we'll be able to bring about the narrative that will shape and reshape youth voices in the implementation of such framework. So the documentation that we are doing at the Africa Philanthropy Network provide the space for young people to even conduct quick action research around the stories they want to tell. And normally we commission those because we know you cannot get adequate time for you to be out there to do the documentation without collecting data. And sometimes when you want to collect data, you need to even have water to drink. So we normally commission young people to document their own voices and their own actions. And our documentation will be around what young people are doing on AFTA. Last but not least, you spoke of advocacy, and we believe that, yes, there are policy and legislation out there that, given the fact that young people need to be active actors in the implementation of AFTA protocol for youth and women, the environment that must be available and must be availed. So we will work together to say what are the practices and what are the legislative framework or environment that will support young people to be involved. I was hearing about the time it takes and the cumbersome procedures for us to be able to even trade amongst our continent. Yes, the cross-border trading, it's an issue. It affects everyone. But it's beyond that. I think we need, even if we want to talk about the engagement in Africa Free Trade Area, we need also to be to bring our voices together and push back on the Africa Without Border. Because with the borders, we won't be able to continue to do anything. It's difficult for us to travel. You need almost 25 visas to go through southern part of Africa to the northern part of Africa. Why should we be doing all that? But again, those are the promises that APN will do. So the spaces like this, we are going to launch the community of practice for us to bring voices of young people on the implementation of AFTA. We'll make sure we are creating spaces for every young person to be aware of the AFTA implementation protocols, because we think that is the critical tool for us and for young people's voice to be included in all decision-making structures, implementation processes, monitoring and evaluation and learning processes. So that is another space. We know we need different techniques to be able to bring young people from the margin to get into the awareness and their voices to be heard, but there are also different mechanisms that can really bring young people as we have brought us together here. Most of us and our young people cannot afford and do not have access to, internet like what we have. So that is a promise which is that we are taking. However, last but not least is we will be collaborating with all of you and continue to learn from your experiences and build on the changes in the context so that we acquire and we achieve intergenerational equality. That is a promise. And with that, I want again to thank all of you. And I want to thank the moderator for their time to moderate this very eloquently. I want to thank the speakers. We'll be very happy if what you have said, you will bring it through the stories. So we'll also come to you to ask you to at least share your stories. And everyone else who is in this call today, would be very happy for you to share your story. Talk about what is happening in these aspects in your community, but those will be commissioned. And the cost of commissioning those stories will be communicated to all of you. But also, let's keep in touch for in-person spaces for sharing our voice, but also for online spaces or hybrid spaces for us to be able to share the voice. We believe in you guys. There is no Africa philanthropy. There is no building the Africa we want without intergenerational equality to start with, but again, without you and your leadership to start with. So stay tuned for any other opportunity that we could bring, but also let us know about the opportunity in your spaces and how can we support the engagement of more voices of young people from different ages, different languages, and across the geography and between rural and urban area. We thank you again so very much. I cannot conclude without thanking my colleagues at the Africa Philanthropy Secretariat, our team led by Kevin and Tarisai, Vanessa, and everyone else, including some of the adults are here who supported Mariki and our accounts team. Let's keep in touch. Let's keep the conversation going. It needs all of us to bring about change, and we all have that power to change the system and build the system we want. If we don't change the system that exists and build the system we want, we will find it very difficult to realize the benefit of the Africa Free Trade Area. But it is a very promising framework. And the protocol is also very promising. I'm sending much love from the Africa Philanthropy Network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tenga, and I think it's a good evening from the APN team, and good morning, depending on wherever you are. We hope to connect in different spaces. Kelvin, are you able to just coordinate us to give the best smiles and to take a group picture for those who are still around? And that should be done in less than a minute. I thank you so much for your patience. So Kelvin, those who are able to just come on camera, please do so. Those who are able to come on camera, please do so that Kelvin can just take a quick peek. Kelvin, are you done?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We are done. Thank you, Tarisai.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Willis, for your partnership.
Bye. And thank you all for attending.